What up, team? Sorry I've been away for a while. I've been super busy recently, and I've been working on my new PC and streaming setup slash recording setup that my amazing wife helped me finish a few weeks ago for my birthday. I know no one's really watching yet, but I still care, and we're going to get back on track. At this point, it's been several weeks since I've watched the movie, but we'll do our best. So without wasting any more time, we'll get right into it. Welcome to Captain Kirk's Movie Q. I'm Captain Kirk. This one is Jungle to Jungle. Released on March 7th, 1997, this one stars the legend Tim Allen, who plays big-time New York stockbroker named Michael, who travels to a remote jungle to try to finalize a divorce to his estranged wife, only to discover he has a 13-year-old son that he never knew about. When I first started this channel and the concept for the Q, I knew this was one that I had to do, as I remember it being a go-to on the VHS shelf as a kid, and come to think of it, I'm pretty sure it's still downstairs in the collection now. However, I don't know how broad of a reach it had. It was fairly successful for the time, but with movies like Liar Liar, Good Will Hunting, Men in Black, Jurassic Park, and Flubber coming out the same year, this Disney classic had some stiff competition. But boy, does this movie hold its own even today. The $32 million budget was put to good use and the production quality is top tier, if you ask me. I really think that the story is heartwarming and relevant even today. The kid that plays Michael's son, Mimi Siku, did a great job, and the connection between he and Tim Allen I thought was pretty good. Pair that with the comic relief of the human punching bag that is Martin Short, I think you're onto something. Not only that, but now that I'm older and have a better understanding of the stock market and how free trade works, the story makes so much more sense and really stresses me out. So the movie opens with a clip of Mimi, who will now be referred to as Emotep, simply because I couldn't remember his name while watching and I just kept writing Emotep in my notes.
It's the creature. He's fully regenerated.
That, and because in his culture they get to choose their own names, and Mimi means cat pee, and I just don't want to say cat pee for the next 11 to 13 minutes. So the movie opens with a clip of Emotep scaling a sheer mountain cliff, just a straight 90 degrees with his fingertips, and that's it. This ultimately is irrelevant to the story, but it was terrifying and I found it interesting. Editor Jesse here, and after putting that clip in and rewatching it a little bit, this actually looks like a pretty significant event, because you can kind of see down in the corner there that there's some like what looks to be like a sacred site. So this is probably like the starting of his like manhood ritual. So there's that. We then cut to the hustle and bustle of the stock exchange floor of New York, where we meet our main character, Michael, and his business partner and sidekick, Richard. And in this scene is where we're introduced to the kind of the side plot of the movie, where Michael is trying to make a play on these future options for coffee. At first, I thought this was some IPO for a coffee company. No. He's literally buying something like $2 or $3 million worth of options for just coffee. And I think it's something like 200 some thousand tons of coffee, just raw beans. But he's making this futures play in hope that the price will go up and that they can sell the coffee for a profit. Shortly after making this purchase, Michael jumps on a plane heading to the jungle to meet up with his estranged wife, Patricia, so that she can sign the divorce papers and he can get remarried. He's only there for a short time, so he tries to keep a boat waiting for him so he can get out of there. But when he finally finds Patricia, she's reluctant and doesn't want to sign the papers, and this is where he learns about his 13-year-old son, Emotep. And in doing so, trying to get these papers and learning about his son, the boat dips out of there and leaves him stranded on the island. The last boat out for at least a few days. Luckily, Michael brought the craziest looking satellite internet computer that I've ever seen. You know, it was the 90s, everything was bigger.
Pause.
And he's trying to send a sell order to Richard once the stocks hit the profit so that they can offload them and make some money. So Michael essentially has an extended vacation on this island, getting to know the people, their cultures, and his son. And man, sleeping on a hammock every night has got to be a nightmare on the back. Kudos to these guys, man. I couldn't do it. Not only that, but Michael had planned on being there so short, he didn't even bring a change of clothes. My man's is still running around an island in a suit. But outside of that, I'm not gonna lie, the place kind of looks like a dream. Living off the land, no technology, limited politics. To court a woman, all you had to do was bring her a pot.
I have infused this pan with the power of red copper.
Don't move. What's it doing? Oh, great! It's now coming after me! Damn, it's chasing me. What?
Never mind.
That stuff is nasty.
There are just way too many creepy crawly things on this island for me. But Imhotep is an absolute sniper with the blow dart, catching this snake while it's running towards Michael. Having grown up in the South, though, I'm a bit of a snake sniper myself.
Oh shit, okay.
Jesus Christ, that's Jason Bourne.
So now we jump to Michael's last night there. It's Imhotep's manhood ceremony, because in this culture, 13 is when you become a man, and they make Michael a part of the ceremony. We also find out that part of Imhotep's initiation into manhood is he has to complete a great task. And his task is to bring back fire from the Statue of the Liberty. The Statue of the Liberty.
96.
Liberty Luchua.
From the Statue of Liberty. So because of this, he wants Michael to bring him back to New York. Now, I gotta say, it really seems like here that Michael got absolutely finessed. It really seems like Patricia knew this would happen, even stating that Imhotep wanted his father to be there for the ceremony at one point. She knew he wouldn't stay, knew the boat would leave, and knew that Michael would have no choice. Well done, Queen.
Gotcha, bitch.
So Imhotep goes with Michael to New York, at least for a short trip. Ah, New York. Imhotep has finally arrived. And little known to him, there's a storm brewing that only Michael can solve. The shares didn't sell, and there's something like $1 million of the company's money on the line. The stock had tanked, and no one wants to buy them at this point, so Michael vows to make it right. It's at this point that Michael, Richard, and Imhotep head over to the studio where Charlotte, his new fiance, is working. She's a high fashion model and has a documentary film crew following her at pretty much all times. And she is not at all pleased with the Imhotep surprise. But the crew is determined to turn this into a positive, to which immediately they see Imhotep climbing out on the edge of the building. No shot, that's me. Later that night, there's a dinner party with Michael and Charlotte and what I can only assume to be her co-workers. And boy, these people were not ready for Imhotep. At this point, he has killed or tried to kill several animals. Michael tries to give him cereal and he literally pours it on the table and eats the cat food.
This is too much for me. Did I forget my tiramisu?
Oh, Louis, you are such a cliche.
Needless to say, party over. So the next day, Michael has to work to figure out what to do with these trash coffee certificates that they're stuck with, leaving Charlotte in charge of babysitting Imhotep. Imhotep's tarantula gets out, leaving Charlotte terrified and trapped in the closet. So Imhotep utilizes this opportunity to sneak out and leave. So while Imhotep's out on his adventures, where he literally climbs the Statue of Liberty to only find out that the flame isn't actually real, after this, he goes and is walking around the city, and he ends up running into Michael while he's out on his business, trying desperately to offload these shares of coffee with no luck. They have a pretty fun scene in the park where they're doing this dancing and things like that. And then they return home, where Michael finds Charlotte trapped in the closet.
The man is a midget.
And boy, Charlotte is an absolutely insufferable woman, I gotta say. And she kicks Imhotep out. That's not why she's insufferable, it's just part of it. So he goes to stay with Richard and his family, and this is where Imhotep meets his new love interest, Karen, Richard's daughter.
Joni loves Chachi.
So Imhotep makes himself at home exploring this sick 90s house. And I gotta say, at this point, I realize why Richard's stressed all the time. I can't imagine the debt that guy is in on that tightrope of a lifestyle. So while all of this is happening, Richard's found a new prospect to buy the shares. The literal mob. The freaking Russian mob. Never a good idea. But somehow it works, and they get him to buy cash.
Look, Richard, it's cash.
So now instead of having to offload these shares, they have $1 million in cash they have to figure out how to transport across New York.
You're walking around New York City with $1 million in a suitcase!
The movie then cuts back to Richard's house when he's arriving home later that evening after a hard, long day's work, to which he finds his prized fish Imhotep had killed and ate.
What we have here is an intercultural misunderstanding.
In this moment, I feel for Richard. You work all day, you provide for your family, you do everything to give to everyone else, and then that one thing that you have is taken away from you. Yeah, that hurts.
Stop it. Get some help.
So that night, Imhotep and Karen sneak out to go and hang out by the pond so that Imhotep can try to catch fish to replace the ones that he killed. They're actually having a pretty sweet moment. and Karen ends up picking her own name like Mimi did. And it's really sweet, and they have a genuine connection. But they mess up ultimately because they end up falling asleep in the hammock out back, to which Richard finds the next morning and absolutely loses his mind, understandably, and kicks Imhotep out as well. And this is one of those parts where watching the movie 2 weeks before recording is harmful because I didn't write it down in my notes. But at some point, they end up buying the shares back from the mob, and then the prices skyrocket. And so the mob thinks that they've done something dirty. And because of this, now the mob boss wants to get back at Michael and Richard and get the shares back. Let me preface, all of this is possible because at this point in time, stocks were literal physical pieces of paper. It wasn't just everything done on the computers. You had to actually physically have the share slip to own it. So yeah. And also a side note, this is a perfect example of why you hold. You know, me personally, unless you actually have the knowledge, the time, or the money to actively follow stocks and trades, to day trade and do things like that, if you wouldn't hold a stock for a minimum of a year, it's probably not worth buying. This is also not financial advice. So Michael finds all this out first, and he tries to go and warn Richard that the mob is coming after he and his family. But Karen's still upset that her dad kicked out her boyfriend. She refuses to open the door, to which they try and break it down, and they end up falling off the balcony in a pretty hilarious scene. Sadly, it's too late. So the mob arrives, captures Richard and his family, and somehow Michael and Imhotep are outside. Can't remember exactly why, but they're trying to figure out how they can save the family. And with the help of a perfectly timed tarantula, they do. And they somehow overcome the mob. The family is saved. Michael gets to offload the shares. The mob is taken care of. But after all of this, Imhotep's ready to go home. He's realized that the flame isn't real. They've gone through this traumatic experience for a 13 and a 12-year-old to go through, dealing with the literal Russian mob. And he's just done. He's ready to go home. So their adventures come to an end. Michael takes Imhotep to the airport to send him back to the jungle. And he gives him a hidden gift that he's supposed to open on the plane, along with a Statue of Liberty lighter that actually has the flame, which is a really sweet gift and very thoughtful. But it doesn't work, and Imhotep's still pretty sad. Another side note, man, I miss the 90s. This dude is literally getting on a plane for the second time with a full bow and arrows. Anyways, I digress. Imhotep is on the plane, and no lie, this was a super heartfelt and well done scene. It was beautiful. Where Imhotep, Mimi, opens the hidden gift, and it's a satellite phone so that they can stay in touch. I'm not gonna lie, I cried a little bit, but ask anyone that knows me, they'll tell you that's not really outside of the norm.
You crying, boy? You crying, boy?
Why are you the way that you are?
Sam Huntington, who plays Mimi, did a really good job here for such a young actor to bring raw emotion to such a simple yet important scene that really drove it home. We cut back to New York, and Michael's back to normal life, wedding planning with Charlotte, who only really cares about her image and her film. We then get a scene back to this Wall Street floor where Michael's back to his normal business, and he spots a fly, kind of like they did earlier in the movie. He pulls out his blow dart and nails it, just like Mimi taught him. And he's been practicing. And I believe that in this scene, it really kind of solidifies in him that he needs to go and be with his true family, because the fly that he hit with this knockout dart hit his boss, knocking his boss unconscious on the middle of the Wall Street floor, and he dips. We go to a scene back on the island where the phone finally rings, and Mimi answers to hear Michael on the other side talking to him a little bit. Then he surprises him, and he's right behind him, back on the island. It never really said if he was there forever or if it was just for a visit, but I can only assume it was to stay. But wait, there's another surprise. Richard and his family are also on a boat, coming up to surprise Mimi and see the island. So Mimi gets to see Karen again. Michael brings Patricia a pot, solidifying his love for Patricia. So beautiful. And there you have it, Jungle to Jungle. I really liked this movie and enjoyed it even today. The production, character development, the story, all of it was really good. And not to mention the end credit scene where Tim is going through his own manhood ritual is just perfect. I really can't recommend this movie enough. It's a blast from the past. It's funny. It's heartfelt. It didn't receive great critic reviews, but honestly, what movies do? So with that, we have another entry into Captain Kirk's top 10. And honestly, this one's pretty tough. I really want to put it at number 1. I enjoyed it that much. But given the accreditation that Rush Hour has, it's just not the time. So Jungle to Jungle overtakes our other entries for a solid number 2. If you all like this type of content and bad dad jokes, make sure to subscribe and be notified when new videos come out. I really want to get to a point to where I'm releasing at least one video a week. If you disagree with my list, or you have any other movies you think I should check out, make sure to put them in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this one with me. Until next one, peace.